Welcome to Let's Get Fresh, the podcast for those passionate about growing their business through the power of connection. At Fresh, we've thrown out the rule book on networking as you may know it, and we've written our own. Think more connections, less blah, and a whole lot of ooh la la. Get ready to explore all things networking and business under the guise of fun, as world-class guests and relatable conversations collide, resulting in education, inspiration, and growth for you. G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Let's Get Fresh podcast. Now today's guest is a bit of a weapon, both literally and metaphorically. He's also been at the somewhat undesirable receiving end of a weapon, a semi-automatic Chinese assault rifle to be specific. But don't worry, only 14 out of the 18 bullets fired in that 5 seconds were embedded into Derrick McManus's body. A police officer for 4 decades and a member of the STAR Group, which is the South Australia Police's equivalent of the Navy SEALs. These days, Derrick spends his time transferring the skills that he acquired through his training and experience into digestible and practical insights for us mere mortals and business owners. I hope that you guys enjoy what Derrick has to teach us about human durability and resilience. Darren Kelk from Travel Managers Australia is excited to be sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Fresh. Darren and his team make dreams come true 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are mobile travel agents who are your one-stop shop for all of your personal and company travel needs. They specialise in international corporate travel, cruises, tours and package holidays throughout Asia, United States, Canada and Europe. With over 21 years of experience in travel, their clients feel safe and at ease knowing that all aspects of their travel is personally managed, which is so important right now with so much disruption around the world. Remember, without a personal travel manager, you're on your own. So check out Darren's details in the show notes to this episode and reach out to him today. Derrick McManus, welcome to the Let's Get Fresh podcast.
Love it. Love to be here, Tiff.
It is a pleasure to have you. I talked about you at our last Fresh networking meeting because that was last week, and I knew that I'd be in a few days sitting here with you talking all things business and human stuff and how to be better and how to be tougher, and I couldn't help but tell everyone at breakfast. They said, "Who's the next guest?" And I was like, "Oh, Derrick McManus." And they're like, what's he do? And I was like, just got shot 14 times with a semi-automatic rifle or whatever it was, a machine gun, I don't know, and lay bleeding to death for 3 hours. Just that guy. He's all right. He's still alive and he's here to talk to us. So welcome.
Good to be here. Good to be alive. Good to be here with you.
Tell us a little bit about the story. We can't help but not hear a little bit about that.
Now, just for your listeners, I'm laughing here, which isn't what a normal podcast interviewee would be doing, but we've met so many times that, we're really, really relaxed. So I know exactly where your head's going when you're leaving me. So where you want me to go? I've been a policeman for 42 years. I'm now retired because I am old. I worked in what's the equivalent of the Special Forces, but a police officer. Mm-hmm. So I trained with the military SAS in counterterrorism. I was a sniper. I was an underwater recovery diver, which is the equivalent, if you know anything about the military services, the equivalent of the Navy SEALs in America, above the Marines, but it's a police equivalent. So I was trained in that. We went out to arrest a guy, and he clearly didn't want to be arrested. And apparently I'm really bad at taking hints because we knocked on his front door and said, and we called out to him. And there's video of this on YouTube, and you can see us knocking and calling, and then you hear me getting shot. But we knocked, we called, said we wanted to speak to him. He didn't answer the door. We had one of our snipers sitting in the bush for about 20 minutes watching the house. We knew he was inside. So I went down the side of the house to look at a entry that we could make, which would be, in my mind, if we had decided to deliberately go through that door, it would have been safer, more efficient, more effective. But it didn't turn out to be safer because as I got to within about 2 feet of that door just to have a look at it, he started shooting, and he was using a And most people won't know this weapon, but I describe it for the people who are really interested. It was an SKK, semi-automatic Chinese military assault rifle. It's the same weapon that the Chinese use when they go to war. And he fired 18 times and hit me 14 times in less than 5 seconds. And there's lots of things that happen within this story, but the overall view of it is that after being shot 14 times, I returned fire. I then rolled out of the way and I was lying on the ground for 3 hours before they could get me out. Now, for that 3 hours, I was fully conscious, monitoring my body, able to control panic, control my mindset, control shock, slow down my heart rate, slow down my breathing, because I knew I needed to control those things if I was going to be able to stay alive. But there's a whole heap of funny stuff that happens in it, and, you know, we have spoken about it. And it's not that I disregard risk. I never, ever, ever disregard risk. And it's not that I was overwhelmed. It wasn't that I was in denial. It's just that I was so well prepared for what I could realistically expect to encounter because of the choices that I'd made in my life and taking conscious responsibility for my choice, my actions, my possible consequences, both good and bad, and then the future after those consequences. And I'd taken that responsibility before I even got shot, right? So I knew there was a possibility and I prepared myself physically, mentally, and emotionally for it so that when it did hit, I was able to relax. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Now, it was hard to focus and concentrate on all those things, but because I was so well trained, I was able to do it. Now, people say to me, Derrick, well, wow, yeah, okay, you were trained at Special Forces level. I'm never going to be trained at that level. I'll never be able to relate to what you're talking about. And I tell people that they are already at that level for the challenges they can expect in their life. What can you realistically expect in your life? And the easy one for people is driving a car. When you first started driving a car, what was it like? No. In fact, let me ask you, what was it like for you when you first started driving a car?
Oh, it was a lot. It was a lot to focus on. It was terrifying.
Yeah. We're all absolutely crapping ourselves going, oh, my God, I'm going to kill someone with this beast. When you drive now, what do you think about?
Oh, do you know how many times I've ended up in the wrong spot because I've gone on autopilot?
Yep. But as much as you're on autopilot and you're thinking about your podcast, you're thinking about dinner, you're thinking about the date, you're thinking about your kitten, that kitten.
Isn't she wonderful?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're on autopilot. You're ending up where you don't want to be. But if something happened in front of you that required you to respond, bang, you're right there.
Yes.
Because you're prepared for what you can realistically expect to encounter as a result of your choice to get in the car and drive.
Yes.
Now, I want people to take that responsibility for their life, for their sport, for their family, for their children, for their business, for their team. We can do it all. We've just got to start relaxing with ourselves and say, okay, this is what I can realistically expect to encounter. Am I prepared for it? Do I have the resources? Do I have the finances? Do I have the training? Or is there something else I need to do? And in my mind, that's all I did prior to the shooting. And I was so relaxed that I was able to have thoughts outside the square. I was able to laugh at myself during this 3 hours of lying on the ground, blood bleeding out of me, pooling on the ground next to me. And I was still up without denying the reality that I knew I was on death's door. I knew there was a chance I was going to die. Very good chance I was going to die. But I was still able to have a laugh within that.
What's really interesting, and first I want to encourage anyone that, that whole story and experience has lesson after lesson after lesson when you speak about it, and we spoke about it in its entirety back in episode 85 on Roll with the Punches. So if anyone wants to hear a literal blow by blow on that after this, of course, head on over and have a listen. But what was going through my mind as you tell that is we actually invest the time in our heads. We use up that real estate for worry about stuff. So figuring out what's the difference between worry and planning / training, or what gets our mind to wrap the right story around the airtime that we give it, because we often, we're always worrying about shit that hasn't happened.
Yep, absolutely.
But yet when it happens, if we've worried instead of planned or trained, then we're not in we wouldn't be getting up after 3 hours bleeding telling the story. Right.
And and just picking up on that theme, this model that I have for human durability, which is that circular one that I showed you, it's about open, honest, confronting conversations about the reality that we could face in our lives. Yes, we worry about it, but let's do less worrying and less thinking it through. This is not bogging down and wallowing in pity and fear. This is, let's just be realistic. And I say that there are two levels of comfort that come out of that. The first level of comfort is, let me take a look at the choices I'm making and the possible consequences. Okay, how much training, preparation, what's my team around me, what are the risks involved? And we analyze all of that. And then we say, how would I respond to it? And there's several different ways that we can go through that modeling for that. But the level of comfort that comes out of it is, after all that analysis, we say to ourselves, oh my God, that's really scary, but I have the resources. I have the finance. My family have got my back. My kids are there to support me. My team at work, whatever it is, they're there. Even if the worst happens, we could actually manage this. So instead of being in that worry pit of, oh my God, can I, can't I want to, let's have a go at it, but tentatively, no, I know we're going to be able to survive this. Bang, let's go hard, let's go fast. Let's, just power forward. The other level of comfort is the comfort that goes, actually, I don't have the finance, or my family aren't completely on board yet, or we don't have the expertise within our system. We don't have the systems to be able to manage it, whatever it might be. And we actually become comfortable at saying, no, we're not going to do this. Now, instead of going, no, we're not going to do it, but I don't know why, it just doesn't feel right, we're able to go, we're not going to do it for these reasons. And we articulate the reasons, and then team around us goes, oh, wow, you've really thought this through. Yeah, that makes sense. We've got you. Let's go and get that expertise. Let's go and find this, or whatever it is. So it's a really comfortable thing if we really sit down and analyze it. So back to the shooting, I looked at that shooting and I actually had a discussion with my wife 5 years prior to the shooting. When I first joined Star Group, I said, real possibility going into Star Group, high risk arrest, hostage siege, counterterrorism. I may be shot and injured. And I saw the look on your face there of, oh, actually, yeah, wow. And I know I skim over those things.
It doesn't matter how many times you say it. When I envision, I can't even say the word. When I visualize it, let's just jump to that word. When I visualize it, it's such a visceral feeling of a reality. How does someone make that decision?
And this is where we've got to have those open, honest, confronting conversations about the reality. And that's what I had with my wife. High risk arrest, hostage siege, counterterrorism, VIP security. And one of my details was security to the Queen when the Queen came out. Cave rescue, cliff rescue, helicopter operations, all sorts of stuff. There's a massive risk here. I may be shot and injured. I may be shot and killed. This is the conversation I had with my now ex-wife. I may be shot and injured. I may be shot and killed. Now, this is a conversation that everybody goes, oh, well, all coppers would have that. All police officers would have that. But they don't. I can tell you now, there is 1% of people or police that have that conversation with their partners. Now, this happens in sport, in business, in families, all the same, because we go, well, we all know it's there, but it's really, really scary. So I hope you'll be able to deal with it when it happens. I trust you to be able to deal with it, but we're not actually going to talk about it. Whereas if we actually talk about it, and I thought I needed to talk about it to my wife because I wanted her to be fully prepared that if it happens, it doesn't hit her with shock. It's still going to be a surprise, scary, somewhat overwhelming, but it's not going to be a completely unexpected shock where she's living in this dream fantasy. It won't happen to us. So I said to her, I may be shot and injured, I may be shot and killed. My first question was, if I get shot and I die, what's your life going to look like? Because it's not all about me. It's about our teams. It's about those people who are impacted by our decisions and our actions. And I did throw to her, what's your life going to look like? And we discussed whether she goes on and gets married and has somebody else look after the children with her in a partnership, whether she wants to stay single and just look after the children on her own and maybe get married later down the track. Now, this was not about me going, I give you permission. This is not about that at all. It was about, let's have a discussion so that if I do die, you don't have that question in your mind, what would Derrick have wanted? Would he have wanted me to do this? No, it was me just saying, it's whatever you feel is right. I want you to feel comfortable doing that. And as I say, I see the lighthearted side in a lot of things because I'm comfortable having these conversations. And so I said, you may want to go on and get married. You may want to stay single and look after the children. The third option I gave her is that she might want to build a little shrine in the corner and just worship me every day.
Do you reckon she does that these days?
I'm sure she does. Even though we're divorced, I'm sure. No, that wasn't a popular option, but it was just that breaking the tension of this really serious conversation without taking away from the seriousness of it.
Yes.
It was just that, okay, let's break that tension, have a little bit of now let's get back to the serious conversation.
Yes. Okay, tell me about the preparation for that conversation, though, because I take that now when I visualise that, and I'm one that's just at the ripe old age of 39, I'm just stepping into the world of difficult conversations and open communication. It's a real focus of mine now because I see it as something that I've shied away from, like many people do.
Yeah.
So the idea of having a really confronting conversation where the person you love the most in the world, their emotions are going to be high, and how do you prepare for a conversation like that? You must have done preparation in what might come up and how am I going to deal with that?
And you know something? I've never been asked that question before, and I actually don't know what the answer is. Yes, yeah, celebrate. So this is going to be something we can mastermind right here as we're talking. I think the majority of it is the vulnerability to know that this is going to be a shock for the other person and they may not respond well.
Yes.
Right. And if you're a leader in an organisation and you have to have a confronting conversation with somebody about their performance,
yes,
they're never going to go, oh, this is great. Oh, thanks very much.
Opportunity to learn.
yeah, that's right. That's what we're taught, but it never comes that way. So I think it's the vulnerability to be able to go, I know this person's going to respond in a way that maybe I don't expect, and I'm not going to respond angrily to their response, right? I'm going to be able to go, I know it's coming. I know where I need to sit and I need to make them as comfortable as I am. So when we have conversations like that, I guess the first thing we need to deal with is the emotions. Yeah. And you can't move anywhere forward in a conversation while people are emotional. And this is something that on another area, as I say, I'm bringing things in from all sorts of places here, creating this on the spot. You can't have a rational conversation with an irrational person.
Yeah.
So while they're emotional and they're like, oh, my God, what are you talking about? That can't be me. Or, oh, my God, you can't put me in that sort of risk. If their emotions are high, they're not able to discuss the actual tactics or the processes that we need to get to the end. So let's get the emotions under control, get everybody on the same page, and then we can start moving forward with the discussion. And I guess for my wife, it's like, no, Derrick, we don't need to talk about this. We don't. And I said, well, I think we do. And that was getting her emotions into the place where she was able to have that conversation. And then it's about, I say there are 5 drivers for success in life, right? And this probably comes into this conversation as well. The first driver is a sense of optimism. Okay, so in that conversation with my wife, I said, what's your future going to look like? How can we make the best future for you if I'm not going to be there? Right? Do you want to get married? Do you want to stay single? Do you want to build a shrine? Will that make you happy? I thought that shrine would make her happy, but so we've got to give a sense of optimism for the future. We've got to give them a belief that they can influence that future, right? The choices they make, the actions they take will make a difference to their future. There's got to be meaning in that future for them, right? They've got to be having a meaning, and meaning is partly around what you want, but it's also more about why you want it. Simon Sinek is a psychologist from America, talks about the reason for why. He focuses on that. So the meaning. The fourth one is planning. Give people a plan. Let them see a simplistic way of being able to get there. There's always more detail in any plan, but just let them see that plan laid out and go, oh, I could see that's possible. And the last one, the fifth driver for support is success is support. Being willing to throw your hand in the air and say, hey, listen, I need some help with that. So I think those 5 drivers really influence those conversations as well. Whether it's a conversation with my wife or it's, a performance conversation in a workplace, you've got to have those 5 drivers incorporated into it.
Yeah, I think it's a really prevalent one when, in business, when you look at business partnerships, but even client collaborations.
Absolutely.
And providing service, we provide services these days, and sometimes we don't have control over the outcomes of things. We have control over the process we put forward. But, these conversations, or this can be applied to such a broad range of conversations in business and in networking, to be honest, where we're referring businesses to other people in our network, and there's a very big relationship at stake should things go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say we don't have control over the actual outcome. We can have influence over it, but we can't have control. So this is where we've got to look at taking responsibility for choice, our actions, and the possible consequence. And possible consequences, you don't really know exactly which way it's going to go. But let's take a look at the good and the bad and say, if it works out well, sensational. If it works out badly, am I able to deal with that? Will the relationship with the other relationship be able to survive that? And if the answer is no, then you've got to start saying, I'm going to make a choice not to take that action. Right? You've got to look at, and we all do this intuitively for the things that we're comfortable with. But as soon as it goes into that uncomfortable zone where it's really scary, we go, I hope it works. I'm just going to back away from this and hope it works. Rather than taking responsibility, we've got to take proactive responsibility for the things we're doing and the possible consequences. And if it does turn out badly, already have that 4th level of responsibility of what's the future going to look like. So if we're doing the referral through your networks and you're connecting 2 people and you go, oh, this could work out well, this could go badly, I'm really not sure, but I'm willing to take a risk. I want you guys to talk. I want you people to talk, but then have a conversation with each of them or together. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I'm hoping it's going to go well, but if something goes wrong, I want to maintain a relationship with both of you. All right. I'm already anticipating there may be problems. Have those conversations. They probably know it already. And this goes down to talking about the elephant in the room, right? And that elephant in the room for me was I may be shot and injured, I may be shot and killed. The elephant in the room when you're doing the networking is, oh my God, I hope it's going to work out well. But let's have those conversations.
Thinking about decision making in business, it's easy to think of this or to digest what you're saying in terms of the training you've done, and I can apply that to sport. We do training, we get physiology, but like I said, with business, it's a whole different range of businesses. Often we're in it by ourselves. There's, what is the training? What is the preparation we can do to get ready for what is essentially the unknown?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the essence of what we did in Star Group. We were trained high levels of everything that we did. But essentially, we were stepping into the unknown every time we went into a high-risk incident. Yep. Because as much as we know what we're prepared for, we actually don't know what the offender is going to do. Yeah. And this is the offender, the adversary, your business counterpart. We actually don't know what they're going to do. So there's always this unknown factor. The military deal with that unknown, and they call it VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? And in those environments is when we get most overwhelmed and they cause us the most stress. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous situations. And the best way that we can prepare for those is say, there's a chance they're going to happen, so I'm not going to be taken by surprise. There's a chance that I'm going to be hit by something that I'm uncertain of, that I'm unsure of, that I don't actually see. The more we're actually able to talk about that and be comfortable, rather than going, I know everything. I know exactly the way this is going to go. I'm really comfortable. And then when the uncertain happens, you go, oh my God, I haven't got a plan. Whereas with a military police perspective, it's like, I know I'm going in. I know I've got my plans, but there could be something that comes from left of field. Okay, that's not going to throw me completely because I'm kind of anticipating it. So how do we best prepare for the uncertainty? There's a probably about emotional control and knowing how to control your emotions. And the biggest one we hear lots about it these days is breathing. You know, it always used to be in the old days, and I'm a little bit older than you, Tiff, just a little bit older.
Surely not.
I'm glad you picked that. But back in my day, it was, you know, when you get into a hard situation, count to 10. Now, that never helped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'm still angry. But it is about the 1 to 10, I'm sure, was about breathing, because when we can oxygenate our body, that oxygenates our blood, that goes to the brain, and the brain goes, oh, maybe this isn't as stressful. And then our systems within our brain, without going into the detail of what those systems are, and I love discussing those, but those systems actually go, oh, maybe this isn't as hard. And so it allows blood back into the prefrontal cortex, where we do our higher level thinking, our complex planning, our problem solving, our creativity. And that's where we want it. But just breathing, letting the oxygen back in, taking just a moment to try and refocus, make a massive difference.
Yeah, I want to really highlight that. That is, it reminds me of quite recently I was feeling overwhelmed in business, had a lot going on, and my perception of everything in my control was, if I use a really technical term, shitty. My perspective was shitty. Yet I stepped in and had a difficult conversation, and it released the pressure valve. And overnight, or even less, it was like in a heartbeat, all of those perceptions changed, and I realised, and my decision making, so I could feel the effect of my physiology. Take away the pressure and the stress and the cortisol and all of the things that are causing me to lack the ability to make good decisions and have a perception on what is in my control. And it's amazing. So I think that, like, talk us through some of the physical stuff and how our minds and everything works.
Well, this probably leads nicely segueing to the two different models of resilience that we spoke about at the very beginning. Because I think when we're starting to get overwhelmed, we've got to know what we can do to just break that tension. Now, the immediate things in the moment are not part of the model of resilience. That's a week-to-week, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month type thing. And I'll talk about those in a moment. But right in that critical moment, the first one is to control panic, right? Don't let panic take control of the situation. The easiest way to control panic is to have those 5 drivers in place. What's my sense of optimism for the future? What can I do to influence these situations? What's the meaning for me? Because if you're in a situation where you're struggling to get through it and there's no meaning, you've really got no fight. You've got no passion. You've got no, oh, bugger, you know, this is horrible. I'll just sit back and wait to see what's happening. And the most critical part of those 5 drivers for controlling panic is a plan. And the plan is just some idea of what you're going to deal with, some idea of how you're going to deal with it. Prior to going into the shooting, I had no idea what it felt like to be shot. I mean, I'd had paintball and I'd had all those experiences, and I've been in other experiences where people have tried to shoot me but just haven't been successful. So I had an insight, but I'd never actually been shot. So it was some idea of what I was going to deal with, some idea of how I was going to deal with it. And that planning is what really helps to control panic. Okay, I kind of anticipated something like this might happen. How have I dealt with similar situations? That's the some idea of what I'm going to deal with. Somehow, some idea of what I'm going to deal with it and how I'm going to deal with it in the future is, how did I deal with that other previous situation well? What did I do well that I can repeat? What did I do badly that I would like to improve? And actually thinking that through. And this is the open, honest, confronting conversation again. You can't go, oh, my God, I skipped through that. I'm not even going to think about it anymore. I was lucky to get through it. I don't know. What created that luck for you? What were those things that got you through? What were the things that you didn't do that you should have if you'd actually been able to think it through? In actual fact, I'm going to segue to another part of the big story. One of the things in my planning prior to being shot was I had that conversation with my wife at the time, and then I went away for myself. And if you can get your head around this, the thinking I had was that if I get shot, what I would really like to be able to do at that time is stop the world and then have everything happen exactly the way I wanted it to. And if I could stop the world and make it happen exactly the way I wanted it to, what would that look like? Now, I know we can't stop the world, right? But if you could, what would be that ideal outcome? What would be the ideal response to it? And I had articulated that. But I'd also accepted that perfection is not always one of those things that comes easily. And some people say, well, we never get perfection. I can tell you right now, there are some times where we do things and we go, I'm going to have a crack at this and see how it goes. Oh my God, that went amazingly. So we do get perfection sometimes, right? But we've got to accept perfection isn't something we're always going to get. So I said, if I could stop the world and make it happen exactly the way I wanted to, this would be perfection. I also accepted that if I was in absolute chaos, where I didn't have influence, I didn't have people around me, I didn't have resources, what might that look like? And what might my mind and my body be trying to do during that chaos period? And how can I influence those effects to get them back on track closer to perfection? So I was accepting that both realms of reality. And the conversation I had with my wife was, I may be shot and injured, I may be shot and killed. It was a real conversation right from the outset.
Talk to me about those two forms of resilience.
Okay. So functional resilience. And it's functional resilience and aspirational resilience. So functional resilience is the stuff we need day to day, week to week, month to month, just to get through those things that cause us that drudgery. My God, I've got to get through it again. Aspirational resilience is those things that we take on that are absolutely exciting to us, but we still know they're going to be big challenges, but we want to take them on. We want to be successful at them. And this would be, when you first started your podcasting, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Now it's like, love it. So functional resilience. The first one is as soon as I start feeling overwhelmed, things are getting hard, and I'm picking up on those cues that's showing that my mental health is not in the right place. I'm starting to get stressed. And those are the things like I'm starting to get bitchy and bitey with my partner, or I don't have patience. The first thing I go to is sleep and nutrition, right? I know that sleep is a critical thing for me. If I'm not getting enough sleep, I'm not able to do the level of thinking that I want. I'm not able to manage all the stresses, and they just chip away at me a lot quicker. And nutrition, you're more of a nutrition Nazi than what I am. If I'm starting to get overwhelmed, I go, bang, no, I've got to get nutrition into my body. Because if my body isn't performing well, my mind won't perform well.
Yeah.
And we can relax and all the rest of it. But when we're starting to get overwhelmed or we're taking on big stresses, sleep and nutrition, number one. The second one is meaningful connections, right? And this is getting close to people and being able to have real conversations with them. Now, if we look at our circle of friends, it's absolutely massive. These are the people that if we see them at the shopping centre, we can stop and have a conversation with them. We've got a massive circle of friends. You've then got a tighter group of friends inside that you would meet them at the shopping centre and say, hey, listen, we haven't caught up for a couple of weeks. Come on over for dinner. Let's sit down, have coffee. Let's have a really good conversation. That's not your meaningful connections either. Your meaningful connections are those people that you are so tight with that if you had a problem at 3:00 in the morning, you could get on the phone to them and go, hey, listen, I need to have a chat. Well, we're not going to chat on the phone. I'm coming around to your place now. Okay, wait, well, I'll be right. These are the people that we would have as our brother or our sister or our mother or our father if we had the choice. So we've got to nurture those meaningful connections, because these are the people that no matter what we say, they're going to be non-judgmental and they're only going to want the best for us. They're not going to try and undermine us in any way. So we've got to nurture those, identify them and nurture them. It's not our massive circle. It's a really tight group of people. The third one is empathy. And it's empathy for self and empathy for others. And I've had lots of people go, you can't have self-empathy. I know that. It's called compassion, but it's a word that I like to use. Empathy for self, empathy for others. We've got to be compassionate for ourselves, right? We've got to understand we make mistakes. We're not perfect. No matter how good a leader we are, we can't see everything. And this is where a leader's got to be vulnerable enough to go, oh, I missed that. Thanks for pointing it out to me, rather than reacting angrily. Do you think I'm incompetent? So have compassion for ourselves. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to go through that fragile period of learning how to become a performer. And instantly, as soon as we have some self-compassion, our stress levels start dropping, right? Because it's like, okay, I know I make mistakes. I made another mistake, but I will get back on the front foot rather than trying to hide it or deny it or anything else. That builds up stress. Empathy for other people. The easiest one to relate to here is when somebody cuts you off in traffic. You know, those people that just become the road ragers. Oh, you idiot, you fool. Does that help you? No. If you're able to look at it in the context of, wow, I wonder if they're having a really bad day. Maybe they weren't paying attention. Maybe they're as embarrassed by cutting me off as I was by them cutting me off. As soon as you start looking at it from that empathetic point of view of maybe there's something really bad happening in their world that I can't see, and maybe that's why the shop assistant has bitten my head off. They're not giving me the service that I want. My client has become really snaky. My provider has become, whatever it might be. If we're able to look at it and go, maybe there's something happening in their world that I don't know about, again, our stress levels drop. Now, this doesn't allow people to not be accountable for their behavior, right? If somebody does the wrong thing by you, they need to be accountable for it. But it may just be a conversation of, hey, did you really need to say that? Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. It's all that. Instantly, our stress levels will drop if we just have some empathy for other people. The fourth one, and I know you're going to love this one, is get active. But it's not about elite levels of activity. It's just getting out and walking the dog. You can't walk the kitten just yet, Tiff, but I did have a partner who did like to walk her cat.
Got a harness. So. She's in harness training.
Yeah, good. And more people should embrace this, but just get active. Get out and walk the dog. Go for a slow ride on your bike. Just start getting active. Just start. Because the more the blood flows through the body, the better it handles triglycerides and, preaching to the converted here. But I encourage people just to get active. It makes such a big difference in endorphins and all the rest of it. The number 5 is indulge yourself. And this is where I say that 2 packets of Tim Tams is not a bad thing. But I don't do it every day. I don't do it every week. I don't do it every month. It's just when I'm starting to feel that little bit tired and I'm sitting down and watching a movie and I start eating the Tim Tams, I go, do you know something? I'm going to have another packet. And I do it guilt-free because I know that I balance the rest of my life around being able to indulge myself. And I know you want to jump in and say something, so hold that thought because I just want to elaborate. But the indulge yourself is, my God, it's stressful at work, but I need to take a 2-week holiday with the family. Go and do that stress-free. There are people who will handle your position. Sometimes as a CEO, yes, you've got to answer emails or whatever, but you've also got to be able to get away stress-free. So I'll let you.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I mean, for me, that just comes, it's straight back to that self-compassion, Yeah. Allow yourself to do it every now and then.
Yeah, because you're trying to enjoy yourself with this indulgence, but you're so guilty you can't actually enjoy it. And then you're feeling guilty anyway, and it's all just spiraling out of control. So allow yourself the indulgence. The sports people, allow yourself to have an easy training. The business manager, allow yourself to be able to take some time out. And it may be just sitting down with the kids and doing their homework with them rather than answering those emails straight away. Indulge yourself in your family, whatever it might be, but do it guilt-free. And then come back and do all those things, because the idea of these 6 steps of functional resilience is just to give your mind that break where you're able to relax and you have more energy to come back in. And I call it, you are able to refresh, replenish, re-energize, and then re-engage. And the 6th one is reframe your challenges, because generally speaking, we sit back and we worry about them so much. And what we worry about is far bigger than the reality itself. But when you've gone through those first 5 steps, your mind is actually going, oh, actually, I am able to look at it from a different perspective now and either see the solution a lot clearer, a lot easier, or be able to have discussions that will actually bring about a resolution, or you just go, oh, my God, what was I worried about? Because you're not, completely stressed. And I've got so many different models in that reducing stress that I love talking about. But, yeah. The next one is the aspiration, and I'm happy to go straight to the aspiration, or is there something you want to unpack in that?
Yeah, no, run through that.
Okay, the aspiration, I'll go through this quickly because I know we're getting to a long podcast here. The first step of aspirational, this is the stuff that we need to take on the big challenges that we know other people are going, you can't do it, you're an idiot, why would you bother? But you're really passionate about it. You want to make it happen, or you have to make it happen for family, for whatever it might be. So the first one is silence the inner critic. That inner critic is that little voice inside your head going, you idiot. How could you possibly think you're that good that you could take that on? And we all have this critic inside our head. And I love talking to people and, in groups and workshops and getting them to show with their hands, who's actually recognizing that inner critic in your head. Mm-hmm. And generally about half to 2/3 of the people put their hand in the air. And I go, well, everybody's got it. And everybody eventually goes, oh, yeah, okay, I agree too. And they're either putting their hand in the air or they're nodding. I then say, who recognizes more than one voice inside your head? We may need to have a different conversation there. But we actually have, in my mind, 3 voices inside our head. We've got the critic, the one that's telling you you're an idiot. You've also always got that positive voice inside your head as well, saying, actually, if you think you can have a go, why don't you have a go? You've got the skills. You wouldn't even be thinking about doing it if you didn't have that positive voice saying, there's a chance you could be successful at this, right? You just wouldn't think about it at all. Would I want to jump off the top of the Eiffel Tower with a parachute? No, because I don't have those skills. I wouldn't even contemplate it. But it's that idea in your mind of, could I? So that you've got that second voice. There's a third voice that I think we have, and it's that voice that is looking down at those other 2 voices, having that argument, and that third voice is saying, oh, you're having that argument again. Because we know we do it. We listen to ourselves all the time. So it's about challenging the inner critic, right, and giving it reason for the critic to be quieter and the positive voice to be louder. The first one is practice self-appreciation, right? Recognize the little things that we do well. Don't wait to see the big things. Recognize the little things. Embrace the little things. And there's the cliche statement, everybody goes, celebrate the small wins, and everybody rolls their eyes and go, oh, that saying again. But it's a reality. We've got to celebrate the small wins. The one example that I like to talk about during my recovery after the shooting, I was bandaged up, injuries to every limb, and, podcast, what number was it that I was in?
Number 85.
85. So I articulate all the injuries I had, but I wasn't able to move my hands. I wasn't able to pick up a pen or a knife or a fork. I wasn't able to do anything because of the injuries to both forearms. But at one point, I started moving my right little finger, and I was able to do it independently. I could do gross motor skills, but the fine motor skills hadn't come back from the injuries. So I started moving my little finger, and people were coming in to visit me in hospital, and I'm going, look, I can move my little finger. And I could see them rolling their eyes and going, oh, well, tell me when you can get up and walk. I'm not worried about your little finger. But for me, that little finger was a sign of improvement, a sign of things getting better. When I could deliberately move that and I had the confidence that every time I wanted to, it was going to respond, then the ring finger started moving, and then the rest of the hand. And each little step gave me confidence that I was getting closer, and it gave me the inspiration to keep on pushing, keep on fighting, because it is some success. So we've got to practice self-appreciation on the little things. Step number 3 is draw strength from those successes. If I just looked at that little finger and gone, yeah, okay, that's working, big deal, don't know how that happened. But I looked at it and I said that was a result of the physios that are coming in to help me, the nurses that are always encouraging me, and my positive attitude to really working hard at it. But we've got to draw strength from those processes. I talk a lot about our internal systems. There was a system that got me to do that. There is a system that got you into the job you're doing now. There is a system that got you into whatever it is. We've got to draw strength from our successes and recognize those systems that we use to gain our success. The fourth one is be great at what you do best. I mean, we all know that we have some skills and people compliment us for them, but we've got that little critic that's going, you're an idiot. And when we recognize we can do something well, that little critic goes, yeah, well, you can do it well, but you're an idiot. So everybody can do it better than you. Don't get above yourself. Don't get too big for your boots. We've got to recognize that people look at us and they go, I love what you do. I wish I could do what you do as easily as you do it. And I talk to kids in schools as well as I talk to fighter pilots, hairdressers, whatever it might be. Everybody have skills that people look and they go, wow, I wish I had that skill. We've got to recognize that what that skill is and be great at that. Yes, we want to advance ourselves and grow in other areas, but we've got to recognize what we are good at and be great at it as well as building ourselves up. Accept genuine compliments, right? Now, we hear this all the time. We've got to accept compliments because it makes you feel better, and there's lots of psychology behind it. But for me, if we're able to accept, embrace, and remember compliments, the next time we stuff up, next time we make a mistake, we're able to go, well, yes, I've embarrassed myself here, but they've given me 3 or 4 compliments in the past. They know that I can perform well. This is an aberration to my performance. They know that I'll be able to fix this and I'll keep on going. Or even if I'm not able to fix it, they know that next time I try something, I will be able to do well because they've recognized it before. If we don't remember those compliments and we make this mistake, that little inner critic's going, you idiot, all you ever do is make mistakes. And that's what everybody focuses on. So we've got to accept and embrace those compliments. And the last one is somewhat the most important for me, and it's be congruent with your purpose. Be congruent with who you are. Do something that has meaning for you. And that's step number 3 in the 5 drivers as well. It is be congruent and do something that is meaningful to you. So if you are, I love talking to kids in schools about this. If you're pursuing a career because your parents say, well, we are doctors, so you should be a doctor, but you actually really love plumbing, then you're not going to be a passionate doctor. You're not going to be a good doctor. You may be effective, but you're not going to enjoy your life. Whereas if you're a plumber or a sparky or a vet or whatever else you might want to do, you're going to be passionate about that. And your passion will make you an interesting person. And I love referring to the movie. And a lot of young kids don't know the movie these days. You may be able to relate to it. Kenny? Do you remember the movie Kenny?
Yes.
Yeah. So Kenny was the portable toilets man and absolutely passionate about it. And even when the toilets tipped over and he had poo, well, I suppose I can say shit on your podcast, can't I?
Absolutely.
He still just loved this job. And Kenny was so passionate, enjoyed his life so much. People just wanted to be around him. And then I talk to people and I say, who would you rather be friends with? Somebody like Kenny, who doesn't do the top level doctor's jobs, but he's a poo
connoisseur.
Pursuer. Or would you like to be friends with a doctor who's got a nice title, but he's got no passion for his work? And he'll tell you that, clients come in, I listen to them a little bit, but I'm also thinking about what's dinner tonight. I'm not just giving them some pills. I'll get them out there, but look at all this money I'm making out of it. Who would you rather be friends with? Right? Who would you rather have in your circle? So it's be congruent with your purpose. Do something that's meaningful to you. That's where your happiness comes from.
And I'm a big believer in that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you allow an area of your life to be like that, then it'll bleed out into the rest of your life. What you allow is what you attract, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. I really enjoyed kind of breaking down the different types of resilience. Like I love thinking about how the mind works, and I love, you know, the way you articulate some of that. So thank you. I love that I didn't have to get shot 14 times to learn it. That's probably what I love the very most, Derrick.
Yeah, funnily enough, I have a few people saying that.
Hey, I want to say thank you so much for coming and chatting to us on the show. But how does everybody how can we reach out? Where can we find you? What can we access?
So long as you make sure you got the spelling of the name, and that's obviously going to be in the podcast title.
Yep.
Contact me on Facebook, LinkedIn, the humandurability.com.au website. And if there's something going on in your life and you want to just have a chat about it, I'm very happy for people. Give me a buzz, send me an email. And I do get them from time to time. And I love it because I'm a retired man these days, so I don't have to work. So I've got plenty of time to do this stuff.
We'll all reach out to you then. Hey, thanks so much, Derrick, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Tiff, absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Well, hands up if you'd have thought that we would be getting business insights from some bloke who got perforated with bullets in a siege. Me either. Well, actually, that's not really true, is it? Because that's exactly what I did when I invited Derrick on the show. But what I love about speaking to people like Derrick, much like athletes, is that for me it really highlights what is in our control when it comes to mindset and the link between that and our physiology. So there were a couple of things that I loved about this conversation, and one was the necessity to engage in difficult conversations and being proactive about that, about what might go wrong or might be a challenge, and talking about the elephant in the room. And secondly, the really practical ideas about cultivating resilience and what leads to resilience. I really loved Derrick's perspective on functional resilience and aspirational resilience and the different kinds of resilience we can build. So I hope that you guys also drew some practical tips that you can implement, and be sure to come back and see who our next epic guest is going to be on the Let's Get Fresh podcast. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Let's Get Fresh. Don't keep it to yourself. Share the fresh. And of course, subscribe to our podcast so you can keep the fresh goodness coming your way. If we've tantalised your networking taste buds, get along to a fresh event near you. Grab your free guest pass at www.freshnetworking.com.au. Until next time, stay fresh.